The old adage about learning from history says those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. Donald Trump's allies have a modification. If we don't repeat the past, maybe nobody will remember it. They apply this to Donald Trump's actions after he lost the 2020 election.
Tim, I'm focused on the future.
But as J.D. said tonight, he's focused on the future and the future that Donald Trump can restore to America.
You want us to litigate things that happened 4 years ago when we're talking about the future. We're not going to talk about what happened in 2020.
This creates a gap in history. Donald Trump's supporters want to talk to voters about every good thing they say Donald Trump did from January 2017 to November 2020. Then they want to jump in time a couple of months and pick back up again, talking about all the bad things that they say happened during the Biden years. What they don't want to discuss are the actions Donald Trump took during the 2 months that led to this.
They did this because they'd been fed wild falsehoods by the most powerful man on earth. Because he was angry he lost an election.
The president bears responsibility for Wednesday's attack on Congress by mob rioters.
The past is not dead, William Faulkner wrote. It's not even the past. How do you know what a candidate will do in the future unless you examine his past? We can't put candidates through simulations. Though, if you were inventing a simulation, you'd want to test a candidate under pressure, where the stakes are high, decisions have to be made. The founders would want to test virtue. Could the candidate serve his oath and not his personal ambition? Donald Trump faced exactly that test. Not a simulation, but reality after he lost in 2020. He brings that same character, that same temperament demonstrated in the past to the future. In the future, there is an election. It matters that Donald Trump is preparing to reject a loss in 2024, just as he rejected the outcome in 2020.
They're trying to sign all over the place, but mostly in swing states. They are working overtime trying to sign people illegally to vote in the election.
In the future, there may be political violence. Federal and state officials believe violence is more likely because those who turn violent have been spurred by the lie that Trump won in 2020. It's a lie Trump repeats, not in the past, but in the present.
We did great in 2016. A lot of people don't know. We did much better in 2020. We won. We won. We did win. It was a rigged election. It was a rigged election. You have to tell Kamala Harris, that's why I'm doing it again. If I thought I lost, I wouldn't be doing this again.
Donald Trump thinks he won. His allies dare not speak the truth. They say it's in the past. This tells us something crucial about the future. What will happen in a future Trump presidency when reality again presents facts as inconvenient as the fact that he lost in 2020? The presidency is a job of recurring inconveniences, pandemics, terrorist threats, market crashes. A team that comes into office practiced at shielding the president from inconvenient facts, allowing fantasies to guide him, and distracting the public from plain truths will find reality operates by different rules. Repeating these tactics in the future invites the same disaster they want to bury in the past.